It all started about a year ago. But to really explain how everything unfolded, I have to take you back 7 years. I was 32 at the time, working in finance, nothing flashy, but it paid well and gave me the kind of stability I wanted in life. That year, I met Julie at my company's holiday party. I was standing near the snack table, doing my best to avoid awkward conversations with my boss, when this stunning brunette walked up and just started talking to me. She smiled, cocked her head, and asked, "Do you always look this bored at parties? Or am I just that uninteresting?" I remember laughing. She was smooth, confident, witty. We started chatting, and the chemistry was instant. She laughed at my terrible jokes, acted genuinely interested in my boring finance stories, and somehow made me feel like I was the most interesting man in the room. By the end of the night, she asked for my number. We dated for 2 years, and when I got down on one knee to propose, she didn't even let me finish the sentence before saying yes. In that moment, I thought I had it all. My best friend, my soulmate, the woman I'd grow old with. The early years were a dream. We traveled to Machu Picchu, partied in Berlin, did the whole find yourself in Thailand thing. When we weren't flying around the world, we were fixing up our first home or hosting big cookouts where friends would crash on our couch. I mean it when I say I was all in. When she was stressed from work, I'd take care of dinner. When she decided to go back to school, I paid her tuition, I planned our vacations, made every anniversary special, helped her prep for presentations at work if she had a problem. I was always the one finding a solution. We both had decent careers. Mine in finance took off quicker, not the most exciting job, but it paid for a comfortable lifestyle, a nice home, weekend trips, everything she wanted. Julie worked in marketing, and I supported her goals without question. When I worked late, I always made sure she knew it was for our future. We were a team, or so I thought, by our 5th anniversary. We were that picture-perfect couple matching Otis in the driveway, a home in a good neighborhood, healthy savings, and investment accounts. We talked about kids sometimes, but agreed to wait until we were ready. But then, about 7 years into the marriage, things started changing. It began with the weekends, our sacred time. We used to binge-watch shows or tackle home improvement projects together. Then, out of nowhere, she started going on monthly girls' trips. They always popped up last minute. When I asked to tag along for dinner one night, she got defensive. You'd be bored with all the girl talk. Weird, considering I'd hung out with her friends plenty of times before. She stopped texting me the funny memes and random messages we used to share all day, and she started coming home late without even a heads up. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed from work. Maybe we were just in a slump. Then came the changes in appearance. New clothes, a different hairstyle, perfumes I didn't recognize. I'd compliment her, and she'd barely respond. The physical part of our marriage, once vibrant, faded. Excuses piled up, headaches, tiredness, not in the mood. And when we argued, it was always twisted. If I worked late, I was neglecting her. If I came home early to surprise her, I was checking up. But the phone, that's when I really started getting suspicious. She used to leave it lying around like it was nothing. Now, it never left her hand. New passcode, always face down, always on silent. One day, I picked it up just to move it off the couch, and she practically dove across the room to grab it. Another time, I glanced at a notification while she was in the shower, just an email, but when she saw me looking, she got flustered and nervous. Still, I made excuses for her. Maybe she was going through something. Maybe we were just having a rough patch. Every marriage has those, right? That's what I told myself, as I pretended not to notice her smiling at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. I was too trusting, way too trusting. The wake-up call came one night while I was paying bills. I was scrolling through our joint account when I noticed a charge for a Marriott, then another, same hotel, different weekends, all within 20 minutes of our house. At first, I tried to rationalize. Maybe she booked rooms for friends. Maybe it was a work thing. But the deeper I dug, the worse it got. More hotel charges, fancy dinners at places we'd never been to, 2 a.m. Uber pickups on nights she claimed to be at her sister's, then no transfers labeled for last time. A $300 charge at a luxury lingerie store for items I'd definitely never seen her wear. This wasn't bad bookkeeping. This was a double life. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but I needed more proof. That's when I remembered an old email account she used for signing up for newsletters and shopping sites. She'd once used it to reset a password on our shared laptop and forgot to log out. I tried the password, her childhood dog's name, and her birthday. It worked. What I found there destroyed me. Hotel bookings going back over a year, email threads with multiple men, pictures, explicit messages. One guy even wrote, "Can't wait for next time your husband must be blind not to see what he's missing. Thanks for the insight, buddy." But the worst, a thread from just 3 weeks earlier. Julie and one of her side guys were talking about a pregnancy scare. She asked him if he'd step up if the test was positive. His reply, "We'd figure it out. But you're on the pill." Right. Her response, "Yeah, but accidents happen. Wouldn't be the worst thing." Brian's always wanted kids. I read it over and over. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to trap me with someone else's baby. The calculated betrayal was almost too much to process. I sat there in silence, waiting for the rage, the heartbreak, something. But all I felt was this icy clarity, like I'd finally sobered up from years of being drunk on a lie. I started gathering everything: screenshots, bank statements, emails, messages. I put it all in a folder. Then I called my buddy Mike, who'd been through a brutal divorce. I asked for his lawyer's info. The next morning, I met with the top 3 divorce attorneys in town on purpose. I wanted Julie to be blocked from hiring them due to conflict of interest. I spent the next 2 days securing my finances, protecting my accounts, changing passwords, backing up everything. I even changed the beneficiary on my life insurance from Julie to my sister. The hardest part was pretending everything was fine. I made dinner, watched TV with her, acted normal. She didn't notice a thing, probably too busy texting her other guys. Once I was fully prepared, I picked a Thursday night to confront her. I set the stage in the kitchen, emails open on the laptop, printouts of hotel charges and screenshots laid out on the table. Around 8:30, Julie came home from happy hour with coworkers. The moment she saw the evidence laid out in front of me, she froze. For a second, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Genuine fear. "We need to talk," I said. Julie froze in the doorway like a deer caught in headlights. I didn't raise my voice, didn't shout. I just looked her in the eyes and said calmly, "We need to talk." For a moment, she didn't move, just stared at the laptop screen behind me where one of her more graphic email exchanges was open. Then she glanced at the papers spread across the table: hotel receipts, Venmo screenshots, lingerie purchases, texts, the works. She took a step forward, tried to play it cool. "Talk about what?" I gestured to everything in front of me. "This." Her eyes darted across the table. Her face paled. And then, just like flipping a switch, she went from frozen to furious. "Are you going through my emails now? Seriously? That's such a violation." Brian, there it was, the classic guilty person move. Deflection. Accuse the accuser. Try to shift the narrative to something else. Anything else. I didn't take the bait. "Sit down." "Julie, I will not. You had no right to go through my personal stuff." Still calm, I turned the laptop around to show her our bank app, pulled up the Marriott charges. "No need for the theatrics. I know everything. You want to explain these?" She didn't miss a beat. "Those were work conferences. You know my job requires some travel. The Marriott downtown, 15 minutes from our house. On weekends, you told me you were staying with your sister." She paused, then tried a different angle. I needed space. Our marriage hasn't been great lately, and I have the emails. Julie, the messages, the pictures, multiple men. This isn't about a rough patch. This is about choices. And just like that, denial turned into blame. "You were never home. Brian, you were always working." I felt so alone. What was I supposed to do when my own husband wasn't even emotionally present? Right. So now it was my fault she cheated. Because apparently, paying the mortgage and planning every anniversary wasn't enough. I was supposed to stay home and read her poetry too. I shook my head. "You had options. You could have talked to me. We could have figured it out, or split. But instead, you lied. Over and over." She dropped the act and went into full-on waterworks mode. It didn't mean anything.
To you.
It was just physical. A mistake.
Stay, please.
A moment of weakness. I love you.
Where
Brian.
you come from?
Only you. A moment of
Ouais, j'ai
weakness
lu
that
ça
lasted
hier
over
soir,
a
c'est pas
year.
grave, t'inquiète.
With multiple men. That's not weakness. That's a lifestyle. Brian, please, she said through tears. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But maybe this is what we needed. A wake-up call. We can start over. I stood there, looking at the woman I thought I knew. And then I asked the one question that sealed it. So, when were you planning to tell me you might be pregnant with someone else's kid? Let me guess part of the wake-up call. 2. Her eyes went wide. She stopped crying, stopped speaking. I've already filed for divorce, I said. My lawyer will contact yours tomorrow. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out for a second. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, you already filed, without even talking to me first. You destroyed this marriage. Julie, I'm just making it official. She scrambled to recover. We can work through this. Counseling, therapy, anything. Don't throw away everything over one mistake. I walked past her toward the door. That's when she snapped one last time. If you leave now, don't expect to come back. I'll take everything in the divorce. Everything. The first smiled, calm as ever. Good luck with that. And I walked out. I hadn't planned on it, but I drove straight to my parents' place. I didn't want to be alone in some cold apartment that night. When my mom saw me walk through the door, she knew something was wrong before I even spoke. Where's Julie? She asked. I dropped my bag in the hallway. It's over. She looked stunned. My dad, who barely looked up from the TV, just muttered, "Took you long enough." I actually laughed. No fake sympathy, no drawn-out conversation. Just a simple truth from someone who had probably seen it coming before I did. That night, I crashed in my old bedroom feeling like a 30-something-year-old man with a broken marriage and a mountain of betrayal on my chest. The next few days were a blur. I blocked Julie's number after the 3rd day of non-stop texts and missed calls. When that didn't work, she started flooding my email with long messages, some apologetic, others threatening. Classic hot and cold tactics. I didn't read them. Just clicked delete every time. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she got caught. Then came the twist I wasn't expecting. My lawyer called. Brian, we've got a situation. Julie filed a response to your divorce petition. She's asking for court-mandated reconciliation counseling. She did what? She's claiming emotional distress and says she wants to work on the marriage due to mental health reasons. And here's the kicker, your assigned judge is Peterson. He's known for pushing couples to reconcile. If he grants it, your divorce could be delayed for months. I sat there silent. Then he added, I also got a little tip from a colleague, Julie's affair partner, the one who might have gotten her pregnant, ghosted her, cut off all contact. Of course, now that her side guy had bailed and the divorce was happening, she was scrambling to go back to the safe bet me. So what do we do? I asked. We could fight it, but that risks looking uncooperative. My advice, play along, go to the counseling, use the time to strengthen our position, maybe even negotiate a better deal. That's when it hit me. Julie was only fighting for reconciliation because she thought she still had something to gain. Our house, our money, maybe even alimony. What if I took all that off the table? That night, I called the one person who'd always have my back. My dad. Hey, Dad, I need a big favor, and it's going to sound insane. I laid it all out, everything. The cheating, the counseling stunt, the plan I was cooking up. He listened quietly, asking a few questions here and there. When I finished, there was a long pause. You sure about this? He finally said. It's legal, but it's aggressive, I'm sure. She's trying to manipulate the system. I'm just working within it. Dad sighed. All right, let's meet with Richard tomorrow. Richard was my dad's business lawyer, had worked with him for decades. Smart, experienced, sharp as hell. The next day, we met with him and went through everything. He leaned back in his chair, tapped his pen, and said, there's a way to protect your assets during this counseling period, but timing is everything. Once temporary court orders are in place, your hands are tied. Luckily, most of our major assets were in my name or in joint accounts, so we had options. And Dad's business was the perfect vehicle. We'll structure everything as investments and loans, Richard explained. Fair market value, proper documentation. Nothing that looks shady or fraudulent. We spent 2 hours ironing out the plan. By the time I walked out of that meeting, I had a roadmap. I was going to remove every incentive. Julie had to reconcile, and I'd do it all legally, by the book. That evening, I got an email notification. Our first court-appointed counseling session had been scheduled for Monday morning. Perfect. That gave me the weekend to put phase 1 of my plan in motion. Over that weekend, I got to work. First stop, our joint savings account, about $180.00 in total. I transferred the full amount to my personal account, then immediately wrote a check to my dad's company. On paper, it was a business loan with documentation, interest rates, and repayment terms all filed properly. Dad deposited it into a separate business account made just for this. Next up was our brokerage account. I liquidated everything and reinvested the funds into my father's new business venture. Again, all completely legitimate, filed as a standard investment opportunity. Clean.legal, by the book. The house was the trickiest piece. It was in both our names, so I couldn't sell it. But Richard had an idea, a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. I applied for it on Monday morning. With my financials and credit, it sailed through quickly. By midweek, I had $350.00 in equity pulled from the house. And just like the savings account, I moved the money as a business repayment, paying off debts to my father's company. Paper trail. Solid. By Sunday night, I had quietly moved almost every major asset just out of Julie's reach. All legally, all documented, and all before any temporary court orders could freeze the accounts. Then came Monday morning. I walked into the counseling office, cool as ice. Julie was already there in the waiting room, sitting stiff in a modest dress like she was auditioning for the role of remorseful wife in a bad soap opera. When she stood to hug me, I sidestepped and muttered something about being tired. Then I stared at a potted plant until the counselor called us in. Enter Gerald, mid-50s dot cardigan, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like a guy who handed out tissues for a living. He greeted us warmly and started his safe space speech, something about communication, honesty, and emotional healing. I nodded politely while mentally going over my next financial move. He asked Julie to speak first. She launched right into it. A perfectly rehearsed monologue about emotional needs, how she'd felt alone, how it was all just one big mistake. She even choked up at one point, eyes glassy, voice trembling. I didn't buy a second of it. When it was my turn, I kept it short and clinical. My wife had multiple affairs over the course of a year. I found out. I filed for divorce. The court recommended counseling. So, I'm here. Gerald blinked. I sensed some resistance. Brian, that's natural. Betrayal creates deep wounds, but for this process to work, both parties have to fully engage. Thanks for the tip, Dr. Phil, I replied, just barely resisting the urge to roll my eyes. Behind the scenes. Phase 2 of my plan was in motion. The HELOC funds cleared. I signed the payment to my dad's company. That weekend, I quietly began removing personal belongings from the house, family heirlooms, important documents, anything I didn't want tied up in divorce court. I did it all while Julie was out with the girls. By the third counseling session, Julie was glowing. She thought the sessions were really helping. She even texted me afterward, suggesting we grab coffee sometime. I replied with a polite excuse about a work call. By the fourth session, she told me she was hopeful about our future. I left her on red. At the fifth session, Gerald gave me that earnest counselor look. Brian, I know this has been difficult, but healing takes time. You have to meet your partner halfway. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You're right. I just need time." He lit up like I'd just had a breakthrough. That's wonderful. Brian, acknowledging the need for time is a big step forward. Julie was practically skipping as we walked out of that office. That felt different today, she said, smiling. Like we're finally making progress. I gave her hand a light squeeze and flashed my best fake smile. It's been educational. As she drove off, probably feeling victorious, I stayed in my car and called my lawyer. How much longer? I asked. Final hearings in 3 weeks, he said. Everything's right on track. By the time we step into court, there won't be anything left for her to claim. Good, I said. Let's finish this. Those 3 weeks flew by. I kept playing the part, showing up to the sessions, nodding, saying just enough to keep the performance alive. Meanwhile, I was still moving smaller items, closing old accounts, opening new ones in my name only, shifting funds into safe havens. Julie thought we were reconnecting. In her mind, this was the beginning of a fresh start. She didn't realize I was preparing the final curtain. Then, it was court day. We arrived at the courthouse separately. Julie walked in looking like a Lifetime movie protagonist, subtle makeup, conservative dress, the picture of sincerity. She even reached over and squeezed my hand in the waiting area. I let her, because I knew it would be the last time she'd ever touch me. Judge Peterson was exactly as described, an old school type. Gray hair, reading glasses perched low on his nose. Probably hadn't updated his opinion since the Reagan administration. He opened the file. I see Mr. Davis filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and infidelity. But now both parties are seeking reconciliation. Julie's lawyer, some guy named Wilson, who specialized in high-stakes divorces, stood up. That's correct, Your Honor. My client acknowledges her mistakes and believes, after counseling, that the marriage is salvageable. Both parties wish to withdraw the divorce petition. The judge looked at me. Mr. Davis, is this your wish as well? I stood up and said, clearly and calmly, no, Your Honor, I still want the divorce. You could hear a pin drop. Julie's head snapped toward me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge blinked. But the counselor's report was based on my required attendance, not agreement. I never intended to reconcile. Julie's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, this is outrageous. My client was led to believe. Led to believe what? My lawyer cut in. Counseling was mandated by the court, not requested by either party. Wilson shifted gears instantly. Regardless, as this is a no-fault state, my client is entitled to equitable division of marital assets. Mr. and Mrs. Davis share a home valued at $750,000 so, brokerage accounts, and significant joint savings. My lawyer smiled slightly. About that, Your Honor, here's our complete financial disclosure. He handed over a thick folder. The judge flipped through it. It appears that most of the joint assets have already been reallocated. Correct, my lawyer said. Mr. Davis made several documented legal business investments and repayments. All transactions were finalized before any temporary orders were filed. Everything was conducted above board. Julie's face turned from confusion to horror. She turned to me, voice trembling. You planned this the whole time we were in counseling. You were just playing the game. I looked at her and said, just like you were. The judge cleared his throat. While I don't necessarily approve of Mr. Davis's methods, I see nothing illegal here. The divorce is granted. Just like that, it was done. Julie lost nearly everything. She got to keep her car and whatever was in her personal checking account. That was it. Over the next 4 months, my dad and I began reversing the paper trail. The loan got repaid with interest. The business investments paid out dividends, the HELOC, quietly covered by a new deal between his company and mine. It was all clean, legal, and bulletproof. When all was said and done, I'd retained about 90% of our original assets, roughly $550,000 in cash and investments. Julie got a lesson. It's been 8 months now. I moved into a downtown condo, got promoted at work, and finally feel like I can breathe again. Life is good. I was hosting dinner for my parents the other night, Mom's famous lasagna. Dad grilled steaks. We were just sitting down to eat when the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Guess who was standing there? Julie. Julie stood on my doorstep, looking nothing like the polished, confident woman I'd married. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red, clothes wrinkled, and in her arms, a baby, Brian, she said quietly. I'm sorry to just show up like this. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't say anything right away, just leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. Behind me, I could hear my dad asking, everything all right? And my mom calling out, is it the neighbor? Nope, just the ghost of decisions past. What do you want, Julie? I finally asked. She swallowed hard. I'm not here for me. I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. But this... She looked down at the baby in her arms. His name is Aiden. He's innocent in all this. I didn't move. She kept talking. The baby's father. He's out of the picture. He ghosted me after I told him I was pregnant. My parents kicked me out a few months ago. I lost my apartment. We've been staying at a shelter. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, I just need help. Alone. Enough to get us into a place. I'll pay you back. I promise. Please. Brian. Just a few months to get on my feet. Before I could answer, my dad appeared behind me, holding a glass of wine, peering over my shoulder. His face changed the second he saw her. Well, he said, arms folding across his chest. Look what the cat dragged in, and with a +1 no less. Julie's face turned bright red. Mr. Davis. Save it. My dad cut her off. You've got some nerve showing up here after what you pulled. She looked desperate now. Please, just 5 minutes. For old time's sake. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to fix them. Brian, please. I shook my head. Not our circus. Not our monkeys. Try one of the guys you screwed around with. Maybe one of them wants to play house now. She started to say something else, but I didn't give her the chance. I shut the door. That was the last time I saw or heard from Julie. I don't know where she is now. Don't care. I didn't check. Didn't follow up. She made her choices, and she paid the price for them. As for me, I've moved on. I'm not saying it was easy. Getting over someone who shared your bed, your plans, your life, that takes time. But I've come to understand something important. Sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes peace comes from finally being free of the lies. Business is booming. I've picked up new hobbies traveling again. Slowly dipping my toes into dating. Nothing serious yet. I've been focusing on myself, and for the first time in years, I feel like I'm living life for me. The betrayal cut deep, but it also carved out a new path. One where I'm no longer blind, no longer taken advantage of, and definitely no longer a backup plan. So, yeah, Julie tried to baby trap me with a child that wasn't mine. She played dirty, but I played smart. I played the long game, and I walked away with my dignity and my future fully intact. And that was worth everything.